Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in and checking out the video. Now, this video is going to be talking about the matchup going down Saturday night between George Groves versus Badou Jack. Now, this fight I'm really excited for. Interest in this match is basically because I believe this fight is going to be a 50-50 matchup. So those are always intriguing fights for fans to look into and break down fighters, things of that nature. Those always excite me personally. And yes, I said that's my favorite fight on the night. I know Floyd Mayweather and Andre Berto fighting, but I find this matchup more intriguing myself, and a lot of people I think would agree with that assessment. Now let's talk about Badou Jack and what he brings to the table in this fight. So when I look at Badou Jack, he was a guy, to be honest with you, in his last fight against Anthony Durrell, a lot of people counted him out and didn't think he was going to win that fight because he had previously been knocked out by, I think it's Derek Edwards, I believe, who knocked him out in the first round. I know at that time of his career he was going through some personal troubles before that fight because I knew somebody who was close to him, and he told me that he was going through some issues before that fight. So nonetheless, a lot of people had question marks about him after he got knocked out in the first round. Now, in this fight with Durrell, early on, Durrell was winning that fight, but in the later rounds, you really saw Badou Jack come on very strong in that matchup. And when I look at the skills that Badou Jack brings to the table, I see a guy who really likes to work off his jab. You saw that in his fight against Durrell. You also see a guy who loves to work the body, very effective when he can back his opponent up on the ropes. And he's a guy, in my opinion, who has pretty good conditioning as well. I thought he really did a good job in that fight with Durrell coming on in the later rounds, and he seemed to have a lot of steam left in his tank. Now, when we look at George Groves, this is a guy who recently, um, he was on the top of the world at one point. He was a guy who, in his first fight with Carl Froch, he had an excellent performance. Huge controversy because the referee stopped it too early, in my opinion. But a lot of people were very high on George Groves, and picking that fight with Carl Froch, I would say Froch was a slight favorite just for his experience, but Groves is definitely a guy who a lot of people thought big things in the future of. And of course, in that fight, 80,000 people in Wembley Stadium, George Groves was knocked out. And in my opinion, he's never been the same after that fight. You look at his last fight against Douglin, the guy from TMT's gym there. He isn't that good of a fighter in my opinion, but George Groves didn't look good at all in that fight. And George Groves from previous years, I think easily would have stopped him earlier than he did. He ended up stopping Douglin in the seventh round, but I wasn't overall impressed with his performance. Now, when I look at George Groves, I see a guy, effective jab, very nice right hand. He's a big puncher. He'll give you some movement as well. Um, he's a guy who has some cardio issues, in my opinion, and I really love to see him go back to Adam Booth. And going into this fight, he's also been training up in Big Bear, California, in preparation for this matchup, and this is his shot at a world title for the third time. So it's a very important fight for him, and I think he's got a real shot at winning this fight. But let's get into the advantages both fighters bring to the table. I think Badou Jack has better conditioning than George Groves, in my opinion, when I look at the two fighters. I also believe that Badou Jack's confidence is also higher at this point in his career because Badou Jack was the underdog, like I said, against Durrell, shocked a lot of people, and I think his confidence is probably at an all-time high. Now, Groves, what does he bring to the table in terms of advantages? Groves, in my opinion, has experience in big fights. Carl Froch, two of those fights. Also, he beat James DeGale in an excellent fight. Very, very close matchup. And DeGale is a world class fighter. Also, I believe that George Groves is the bigger puncher of the two, in my opinion. And I think that a prime George Groves, pre getting knocked out by Carl Froch, is actually a better boxer than two, in my opinion. Definitely love to see George Groves get back with Adam Booth in the future. Hopefully, one day that comes about. But my prediction for this fight, I'm going to take George Groves to win a close unanimous decision. It's key for George Groves, though, to start off very early in this fight, landing his jab, his right hand, setting the tone, because I think he needs to win early rounds because, like I said, he struggles, in my opinion, conditioning-wise later in the fight. and that's an avenue where I think Badou Jack is going to come on very late in the fight. It's going to be a tale of two fights type of thing. So, in my opinion, I think George Groves does enough in the first half of the fight to be able to hold off Badou Jack and win a unanimous decision in that fight. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning into the video. I'm going to have a Mayweather versus Berto quick video as well, guys. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Thank you very much once again.